Parliamo sempre di
So we're
biscuit.
always talking about biscuit. In this case, we'll see a meringued biscuit that starts from a Dacquoise biscuit with proportions. We're not using tender grain wheat, but we will use almond flour. Here we mixed almond flour and coconut flour to have a flavor and consistency that are more interesting for the product that we want to make. So the ingredients are very similar to the ones from before. Clearly we have egg whites, we don't have egg yolks, so we'll have a mass that will tend to foam up and whip a lot more compared to using whole eggs. Then we have sugar, icing sugar, coconut flour or dehydrated coconut, and almond flour. Very important thing, when you use dried fruit, always remember to heat it up slightly in the oven at 135 degrees Celsius for like 10 minutes, and this will dry it out a little bit because often the water and especially the fats and the oils in the dried fruits, imagine that you're preserving your dried fruit flour in a place that maybe it's a little bit warmer than usual, and the oils might tend to come out and so to dampen our flours. So especially in the warmer periods, always try to heat it up a little bit to dry it off and eventual humidity that they might have taken during the preservation. And heating them up also helps us to highlight the essences of, in this case, coconut and almond. So let's take our egg white and let's start from a meringue base. So egg white in planter machine, we will always slightly foam it up without anything, because in this case we have castor sugar, so sucrose. Always medium to high speed. When it starts foaming a little bit, we see that the white of our foamy face starts to come up to the surface. We can slowly, progressively insert our castor sugar. It will take around 1 minute. As you can see from the high camera, we've almost arrived to this phase, and we can start always very gradually to insert our sugar, castor sugar. Always notice, compared to other videos, the difference, substantial difference that we notice between the capacity, the foaming capacity of when we only use egg whites compared to when we use whole eggs, or when we maybe use more egg yolk compared to egg whites. From here, clearly our dried fruit flours have already been dried up at 130 or 135 degrees for 10 minutes. We can join them, and we're going to mix them first between each other using our hands. In this way, the coconut is usually a little bit drier. We'll kind of sift the almond flour. We're not using a sifter with dried fruit because we want the grains. And from here we can directly sift the icing sugar inside. So let's lower the speed on the machine because we've gotten to the point. We never have to get to an extreme whipping because we might create a mass that's so foamy and rich in air that it will have dried part of the water that's present inside. So when we put the dry part, it will kind of be harder to incorporate. So let's put the icing sugar, sift it inside our mix. Every now and then we're going to use the spatula to make it a little bit quicker, to push the sugar nicely. Almost done. Let's remove this, turn off the machine. Here always remember to not beat the whisk directly on the bowl so that we don't deflate the mass. Now we're taking our powder mix, we're just mixing it with our hands so that they are thoroughly mixed, and the icing sugar, working with the more grainy parts, thicker parts of the powders will even get finer. From here we're not working with the sift directly with the whipped mass because we can't sift some rough powders like dried fruit ones, so we're going to use our hands very lightly into 3 or 4 parts, and then again from bottom to top with our spatula. Always the same way as we learned with whipped masses. So from bottom to top. In the beginning, the whipped mass might be a little bit resistant to our work because it will be much more consistent compared to a whole egg whipped mass. So always be gentle, keep inserting our powders, always from bottom to top. Always try to use the same movement. This is a very good product for people who maybe have gluten intolerance. So if you want to make a modern cake or a mono potion, semi-freddo mousse based, you know that using a biscuit like this, you can serve it even for people who are intolerant to gluten, because we haven't used gluten flour. Again, clearly the external part to the chewing will allow us to have a better consistency, a more caramelly, crunchy consistency, but having some dried fruit powders, we will also have aesthetically a product that's a little bit more rough compared to maybe the biscuit we made earlier, the soft honey biscuit. So the grains of the powders you use will allow you to obtain a product that's more or less crunchy, more or less fine, more or less geometrical. Always from bottom to top. Always stir the bowl with the other hand. So let's take our usual spatula. Here we have a tray with oven paper. Always remember to keep your working station tidy. Always take a cloth to keep everything clean. It's very important for us who are beginning a formation course, a growth education. So a tray with oven paper, always remember to cut the eventual excesses of the oven paper. Some grease, butter, spray butter on the bottom of the oven paper so that it sticks to the tray And we will do the same, so putting our mixture again in the central part. Here the spatula will be the spatula movement will be a little bit simpler because the mixture is more resistant. Try to spread it homogeneously, and then with the spatula again, same work. So center, see, it's much simpler, much easier to work with. Always small movements. An important advice: when you don't have the right proportion from up, you can look at the tray from the four sides and folding a little bit to understand if the thickness is homogeneous on every side. So, as I said, we have a major resistance, so we can push a little bit more. Always try to use the whole surface of the spatula and the tip part to work on the edges. So the thickness must be about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters. It depends a lot on whether you're using it as an insert or as a base. So just evening out. And remember not to exaggerate with the spatula, otherwise you overload our product. Here again, couple hits to the sides, always waiting 8 to 10 minutes so that the biscuit keeps laying out on its own, and then it will go in the oven. In this case we'll work at 195 degrees for about 9 to 10 minutes, and 8 to 9 minutes, sorry, and then we will unmold it and blast chill it positive. And with this we have finished with the demonstration of the meringue biscuit. In this case we made a variation of the dacquoise biscuit.